Hello everyone, welcome to the ESO podcast, The New Companions. I have 3 awesome guests with me today. We are also going to be talking about the Necro, which is the newest class to the Elder Scrolls Online with the expansion slash DLC slash whatever you want to call it, depending on what game you play obviously. Elsewhere, which came out June 4th on every single platform. So welcome everyone, whether or not you're watching live on Twitch, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or any of the other things. I'm going to start the show and show you our epic, awesome guests. If there are any issues, obviously, in the chat that you can tell of, like we look too good or anything like that, you know, and then obviously let us know. And if you are listening on Spotify and whatnot, there is going to be a link in the description for the VOD as well, so you can actually see how good we look. But I'm just going to continue with that line of questioning. This is an hour or two about how good we look. Okay, so we have StarkeRealm, KyleDempsterStudios, who's back for his 3rd time on the podcast. His 3rd time. And Xynode, who's also new, as well as StarkeRealm, both new to the cast. Obviously, you know these guys from various places, Twitch, YouTube, the forums. But I'm going to start off with the forums. Wow, that was not intentional. Sorry, I just had a frog in my throat. Wow.
Well, we're doomed.
It's like a Freudian slip of some sort. But talking about forums, StarkeRealm is a master of the forums. Described himself as, let me see, where was it? This was a nice line. I am the co-host of the Tenets and one of the most prolific forum posters.
Yeah, that's not an exaggeration. I think the last time I checked, it was like 19,000 posts.
Whoa, seriously?
Seriously.
You need a new keyboard.
How many keyboards do you
actually
have? Amazing. So what is it that you mainly remark on or post, would you say? Well, I know that's difficult to sum up within that amount of
mostly mostly Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah, it covers a lot of stuff. Mostly I stick to the PTS and general discussion, but general discussion tends to be a catch-all of basically anything somebody wants to complain about where they're not willing to go into the specialized board for it. So this covers things like development content. This covers things like just people having issues coming to grips with the games, build questions. It's really a catch-all.
Okay, so you're like the Mother Teresa of the forums. I mean, you know.
Comparison.
That's
an
pretty
interesting
good
comparison, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but I think that was quite good. Okay, also. But
it's an interesting analogy. Let's go with that.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe you don't want to be called that. I'm sorry.
No,
don't quote me on that.
No, I'm just a little bit more abrasive than associated with that. So
I was trying to be kind.
That's fair.
But you do some writing as well and bits and pieces, and you co-host the Tenets show with Tenets. Okay. Yeah. With Kyle as well, which is a very good show. If you can check that out, there will be a link for that as well in the description. Really, really good podcast as well with these 2 guys. But yeah, thank you for coming. Kyle, he's been here before. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I don't really need to preface with a quote or anything.
Come on, you don't have
I mean, Kyle, like the legend of
Please.
all the things that is a very talented streamer within our directory, and a good man indeed, and very good at talking on the podcast, which is why we have him again back here today. But you are welcome to also do a little bit of an intro for yourself. Why not?
Thank you. Yeah, I am Kyle, or KyleDempsterStudios here on Twitch. I stream pretty much exclusively Elder Scrolls Online, partnered streamer through ZeniMax and Twitch and all that stuff. And like you introduced there, Stark and I are co-hosting the podcast The Tenets, which is all about helping new players get into ESO. And we have amazing guests like Xynode and such, and Jebro, we need to get you on there. We need to get you on there. Talk.
I would love to go onto a podcast myself that I'm not hosting. That would be good. I would love that. Yeah, any day.
Excellent.
Okie dokie. So then, last but definitely not least, if you have played Elder Scrolls Online and you've tried to look up a build for something, whether or not it's well, pretty much. I mean, you do a broad mix of stuff, don't you? He's got a website. He's
Pretty
got
much
flipping
everything.
YouTube videos, doing all the things. He's got on Twitch. He's everywhere. You can't play Elder Scrolls Online and be on some kind of social media or YouTube without checking out Xynode. I'm very happy that you're here, actually. I've been trying to get him on for a while because he's a busy man.
You have. I was busy last time. We couldn't make it.
But yeah, do you want to just introduce yourself very quickly?
No.
Yeah. No, you don't. I don't like being it.
Obviously, you've done the name already. That's how you pronounce it, by the way. You pronounce it Xynode, not Xynode or anything else like that.
Oh.
YouTube itself is mostly focused on build videos, dungeon guides as well, because I have a whole series called All About Mechanics, where every single dungeon, except for the new ones, obviously just on PTS, are all covered. Every single one of them, all the difficulties, all the methods behind it, written guides and all that as well, which then transfer to the website. Then the live streams themselves, which do get uploaded onto YouTube, is all Twitch, and then also I have the Patreon side as well, where I help as many people as want to be helped. Based on perks, obviously, with certain areas of perhaps their game or maybe Discord access and all that kind of loads of different things. So I'm all over the place, basically.
Awesome.
The only thing I haven't mastered yet is Twitter because I keep typoing like.
Yeah, edit feature.
Really bad.
One day. Maybe we'll do a podcast on the edit feature on Twitter. Sorry, well, Twitch as well. I guess you could do. Is your live streaming? Can I please remove everything I just said? I don't think it works like that, unfortunately. It's the downfall of live content, I guess. So we're talking about the Necromancer today. So the Necromancer was introduced with Elsewhere, of course. I think people obviously wanted it for a long time. Obviously, I've personally only been playing Elder Scrolls Online now for about a year and a few months. But obviously, I read before on the forums, people really wanted Necromancer, even on release, right? Even like 5 years ago or so, like they really wanted it. So we're going to talk very, very vaguely about kind of the Necro style, like kind of how we feel about it. But pre-Elsewhere, before, because obviously some of you guys, some people went to the studios, obviously played Necromancer. But before even that, before you even got to play it, how excited were you guys? You know, they announced Necromancer. It's like beginning of the year and all this kind of stuff. It's like January, like no MMO ever, I don't think, has released a roadmap of the entire year for a start, let alone announcing a brand new class which is coming out in 6 months. Like, so from that moment, and I'm going to start with StarkeRealm, were you pretty excited about Necro, would you say? Or is it like, I don't know.
Somewhat. Like, what's actually funny for me with the Necro is going back, because like you said, this has been something that's been asked for since beta, where people were asking for this class. And looking back like 3 years ago on the boards, you'd actually see me arguing against the inclusion of it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because again, like from the structure of the game as a whole, it didn't make a lot of sense. And the big thing that got introduced, and this was part of the initial announcement, was, oh yeah, some of the necromancy abilities will be illegal. They'll actually be justice reactions. And that was a big part of it, where it's like, okay, if I'm going to play this character as a necromancer, then I'm going to be breaking the law constantly. And when that wasn't... Not personally, sure, okay. But I mean, all of us. So at that point, it's like, yeah, I wasn't seeing how that could happen. So I wasn't particularly excited ahead of schedule. In looking at it in the lead up, I was pretty excited just for the visual element, and I still think it's a really visually dynamic class. But it wasn't something where it was like, oh yeah, I thought this needed to be here from the beginning, because I was always kind of like, I'm not sure if it fits. And I think what we see now does actually fit pretty well, but that was that specific jump of, okay, they're gonna expand this to affect stuff we hadn't seen, that they hadn't done before, like making certain...
Oh. Hello? Oh dear. I think our call just went down. Can you guys hear me?
Hear you.
Oh, good lord.
There we go.
Oh, God. Oh, God. No, don't do it.
But the Twitch feed's fine.
Jesus.
It looks fine.
Yeah, I think
What happened there?
I think the cord just froze.
Okay. I thought it was my system. Like,
I think
the whole
it was
thing just went dead, and I was like...
Everyone was like completely still and emotionless, and I was like, "This is a podcast. I need emotion. God damn it!"
I need more emotion.
Stark, rewind 2 seconds.
Okay.
Where did we get to just then?
That's a good question.
Because
What was the last thing anybody remembers hearing?
It was
Illegal stuff.
Illegal stuff.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Yeah, because I remember the thing I was like talking about, like it was illegal. That was something I didn't expect to see, and I remember this is going way back. I remember testing when the justice system was first introduced, because I think Zai remembers this, but this might be new for both Jebro and Kyle. Originally, the justice system wasn't part of the game. Like you couldn't break the law in game at all, no matter how hard you tried.
Okay.
You go into somebody's house and just hoover up everything out of their desks. They didn't care.
Okay, so when did that come in? Do you remember?
I think it was 1.6 or 1.5. So that would have been, it was like 2014. So it was first year. But I remember one of the first things I tested as soon as that hit the PTS was I went into Daggerfall on one of my Sam characters and wolfed out and waited for the guards to react, and they didn't.
Okay.
No, they don't care if you wolf out, it's fine.
Yeah, and that was actually something like that set the tone for me on the idea of the Necromancer, where it was like, okay, we're going to have this thing where it's like, this is illegal. You should be working against the protagonists, but the game's not going to care. And the decision to specifically bake in abilities that would have a justice system reaction was just like a huge game changer for me for the Necromancer. So that was something I was actually looking forward to. So I came around on that, pretty much on that specific detail, ironically.
I mean, I think that's important to know. And actually, funnily enough, later I was going to ask you guys about that. And you kind of answered that question for yourself, so that's good. But that's actually very interesting. But in terms of like the actual class and when you kind of saw the abilities and everything else, your initial was it excitement? Was it
I think it was sort of there's a lot of stuff that looks kind of cool and wanting to mess around with it. So a little bit excited, but.
I've got a feeling that you're the kind of person who's very like you don't want to get too excited because you want to kind of sit back and maybe analyze, because you describe yourself as quite analytical, and wait for the moment to get your hands on it maybe.
Yeah, also because it does set yourself up for disappointment, right? Because, and this is something I remember seeing and talking about specifically between the data mine. Where it was like, oh, hey, here's this Necromancer logo, and here's this thing with dragons, here's this other stuff. And it's like, and looking at that and going, wait a second, if this isn't the Necromancer, if this is something else, then people are going to be really disappointed with this. And like, that was also where I was at, was like, if you get hyped up for something and it's not there, that can just be really, like, it's an emotional roller coaster. You don't need to put yourself on. So I remember like looking at it and going, well, okay, this could be cool, but I'm not going to hype myself up too much on the way in. To be fair, ZOS has never burned me like that. Right. Because I think the one time like they really just blew my expectations out of the water was when Vardenfell got added in, and I was like, "Holy shit, Morrowind!" And that actually delivered. So
okay, well, that's good. I'm gonna split it up between you and. Is there anything else you wanted to say just then? Sorry.
No, I think that pretty much covers it on this.
As long as I didn't cut you off, I don't want to do that.
Nah, it's cool.
I'm gonna split up the tenets. So I'm gonna go to Xynode first, and then put him in the middle. So how did you feel initially about hearing about the Necro before even touching
Necromancer
it?
was hyped up as hell because it's something that I wanted to see in Elder Scrolls stop anyway. We hear about it all in previous games, and even this one, we'd never actually seen any hint of controlling one, except for maybe summoning scamps, sorcerers. That was it. I was a lot more hyped about it than I was Warden, because it held a bigger personal interest to me, not just for Elder Scrolls, but I started off MMOs almost 20 years ago in EverQuest, and some of the developers from ZOS actually started or had some of their career in that.
Oh,
and
really?
It was one of those games that had so much stuff to do, but a Necromancer was a big thing to it. So anyone that has that kind of nostalgia for that, and then moved from one good game into a really good game, you kind of had that familiarity with something that you really liked. So I really looked forward to them finally having it, but they gave us so many, what's the word for it? False directions as to we're not actually going to do this, that we almost thought it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, right.
And then when it did, it hit, and at the same time they said, "Oh, we're getting dragons as well." I borderline shit myself. So I was not expecting them both at the same time.
Yeah.
Morrowind was a big hit because Morrowind was obviously a classic as a game goes anyway. Yeah. So to give us that as a chapter was huge. Elsewhere is more for people that are really familiar with lore rather than the game as a franchise overall, because some of the previous ones were played a lot. Well, I say a lot, not so much a lot more than Skyrim, but they remember that one. So that hit really hard. But yeah, the Necromancer was insane. Like, it was almost, if not more, of an impact for the class alone, let alone the entire patch. So, and then obviously there's going to be changes and stuff which you're going to go over, but it's not obviously perfect, but it's really good what they've done. So I'm really interested to see what they do with it in the future. But as a stand-in, kind of, how excited are you to have it in the game? I'm really about it. Okay. It's about time, in my opinion. The Warden is great. I would like it the other way around, but then if we did do it the other way around, it might have been too early and it might have been busted even more. So
yeah, that's the thing.
I'm glad they waited a little bit longer.
Yeah,
on release, we wouldn't have had the same kind of impact. We'd have been like, oh, we've got a Necromancer, we've always had one, who cares?
Exactly.
But the build up and the wait for it is probably what's hyped up a little bit more, if you know what I mean.
Well, like you said, I think the intention, you know, maybe they didn't even have the intention of even bringing it in the first place. So, like, you know,
ready.
Like,
it wasn't ready.
No way. Okay.
No, and what Stark said about the justice system, I mean, now obviously there's certain abilities where you release pets and stuff. There's you physically summoning something. That's not allowed. And the guards do react to that. With the justice system not being a thing to start with, that would have been a massive hole in the game and the story and the lore and everything as well. So Stark's right on that respect. That would have been a problem. But yeah, they've got in there now, so it's all good.
Sweet as. Okay, Kyle, how are you feeling? You can tell us emotionally whether or not it was, you know, something that was, you know, scary. I don't know. Whether you're excited, joyful.
No, it's probably the most exciting thing, because actually the exclusion of a Necromancer is what kept me away from ESO for 4 years. Like, I would check in and be like, no Necro? Okay, guess I'm not playing this game. And I started even without it, just on a Nightblade, and was like, well, I'll fake it. I guess this is a Necro.
I'll be a fake Necro. Was that your first character? Kyle, the fake Necro.
That someone had put online that was like, you know, Necromancer type healers, Nightblade or something. And so when they announced it, I'd only been playing for maybe like 6 or 7 months, like half a year at that point. And so I was very, very excited about it. And this comes from a guy that I just did the math while these guys were talking, and it's like I've been playing Necromancer characters since 2001 when Diablo 2 came out with it. So, yeah, it was pretty hard getting into a game that didn't have that for me. Excitement was at an all-time high.
I'm glad. I'm glad that you're excited. I mean, and that's important, you know, especially for the people who are on Twitch and like literally like doing these things. Xynode, I love you, man, and I love your interaction, but I can hear you typing me. I can hear you typing so much. Xynode, this is the sign of Xynode. Like, he's really interactive with his audience on YouTube and everything else. And I love that these guys. It's okay. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure we can hear everyone. Like,
no,
fairly. It's okay. I'm sorry. But like Kyle said, you know, it's all this excitement. It was very exciting, and for me as well, it was like, because I didn't know necessarily about like the lore and stuff, it actually made me want to go and research the lore for a start and be like, okay, why are Necros so bad? You know, like Sorks are fake Necros, so I mean, no, obviously you know what I mean in terms of summoning, like Xynode and Kyle said. But yeah, no, it was excitement. I think the big thing for me was mainly the fact that this was such an early announced thing, like 6 months previously. I think I'm still blown away by this whole announcing everything for the entire year. And so I don't think I've ever really heard anyone complain about, you know, when's the next thing coming? When's the next patch? Where's the next, like, maybe balance? But like, other than
something ESO's done really well.
Really quick, though, don't we? We get them 4 times a year, once every 3 months. There's not much of a wait between them.
Yeah.
Well, and even there, like, they've done a really good job of staying on schedule for the last 3 years now.
Mm.
Yeah, that's something that's kind of unusual with MMOs, because of every MMO I've played, it's been like, okay, we've got content slated, it's coming out, you know, we're going to have it on a 3-month or a 4-month cycle, and then it's like, you wait 8 months or you wait 9 months, and then it's like, okay, well, here's the first thing that was supposed to be here ages ago. ZeniMax Online's done a really good job of actually sticking to schedule, and that's helped a lot and stuff like this.
I think it's got something to do with actually, you know, saying it's going to be this quarter rather than this date. right? And it's got a lot to do with that, because once you put that date in people's heads and then miss that date, it's like you failed, you're awful, you're the worst company in the world, and all this kind of stuff. And I play another MMO, and I'm not going to mention the name because I feel awful, and they have this issue. And many MMOs do have this issue where their release schedule is off, and the content just isn't there when it comes out. And, you know, it's beefy. It's like new dungeons, like new class, new expansion. I mean, we had flipping Somerset last year. That's a lot. I mean, that's yearly stuff. And it's impressive. You know, I'll try not to kiss ass anymore.
I think you're right with the timing, though. I think you are right with the timing, because they do aim for every quarter, as you say, which is obviously every 3 months. And they never really release a date until quite close to that. But if you look at the dates over the years, they're all actually really, really close anyway. So they're always within that kind of ballpark. They're never like 2 or 3 months later than it should be. Oh, sorry, we broke something. It's normally on time. You can normally guess for when things are roughly going to be.
Wasn't there a delay on something too? With
They've
like,
had a delay.
I think it was like Rothgar or something. It got delayed by a couple of weeks. But because there isn't a specific date, it's just this quarter. You're right. You'd have time to sort of Okay.
All right, so going back to you, Xynode, in terms of the Necro, so I mean, probably when it released, especially yourself, as you're making a lot of guides and build videos and whatnot about Necro, for example, are you still playing it now to the consistency you started at, or have you kind of drifted off back to...
I'm still playing it, yeah. No, on the live streams, it's hard to play everything. So I did give a really, really, really big kind of boost to the Necromancer when it first came out. I leveled up 3 or 4 different Necromancers.
Nice.
Showed all the different abilities, and then obviously I made a build of it as well, a couple actually, and showed them off on the stream. But on the stream isn't what I do all the time. But a lot of my stuff, in fact 75% of my content is actually done off the stream. So off the stream, I'm still playing it a hell of a lot. They've really, really, really done a good job of it. Again, like we said, there's obviously going to be some updates and changes, and things will always have to have balance issues and stuff like that. But I'm still really, really enjoying it just as much as I did when I first tested.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm not getting bored of it yet.
Oh, that's good. Kyle?
Not likely to either. I'm biased as hell.
Kyle, how about you, man?
I mean, I love this class and everything they did with it here. So I am all in. I play my Necro all the time, and the game itself, I'm really excited for some new content coming out, some new dungeons to get into, so we can kind of push our limits higher and things like that. So I'm all in on that.
Fair play. And StarkeRealm.
Weirdly, I actually looped back to messing around with my Stam Blade a lot, so I actually haven't finished leveling a Necro. It's the only class I don't have like 350s. So it's kind of like,
Is there a reason that you is it because you just kind of just really enjoy your Stam Blade, or is it that
some of it's actually practical, because especially like with the event right now, it's way easier to do that on a Stam Blade than it is on any other class, because it's just like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to be invisible, I'm going to sneak around.
Okay.
Whereas if I try to do that on Necro, or I try to do that on my Stam Sork, it's like, I just want to die right now. And everybody knows where I am. So it's some of that's practical in that sense. Also, I'm not as comfortable tanking on the Necro yet. So sort of obviously. So if it's like, I'm going to tank something, I'm going to go back and grab my Sork tank, because I can reliably keep myself up with that.
Okay.
So it's just been this weird confluence of, I'm doing stuff at level 50 and then not leveling the character, or I'm doing stuff that requires a specific loadout.
I mean, that's kind of good as well, isn't it? I guess, like, if bringing those events out that make you even want to switch to another class. I didn't really think about that. It's actually a new spin of it that I kind of didn't even think. Just those events. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of this event. I'm not the biggest fan of this event because of the tickets and stuff. But that's just because it's, for me, like, I'm crap at it, and also just because it's kind of the same thing every day. And it's just a personal thing, and that's another podcast. I do enjoy the fact that you can do these things to get a mount. I think that's a very, very good idea. But yeah, I mean, that's another podcast, which maybe I'll get you guys back on to talk about. That could
one
open
thing worth knowing, like, even as the event's wrapping up right now, one thing's worth knowing about is you can take other players into the instance with you. Those are not solo instances.
So they can make themselves revealed instead of you and mess it up.
Yep, exactly.
I'm not doing that.
I know. It's more fun though. You yell at them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, no, seriously, that's cool.
That's very interesting as well. Okay. All right. Where did I get to on this? Oh my god, I got lost in the whole event thing. Oh my god.
Opinions of the Necro and reactions so far, I think, pretty much.
That's right. That's right, indeed. Oh no, yeah, it was constantly. Are you constantly playing it? We just got to
That one.
StarkeRealm. That's right, exactly. Sorry, the events just popped into my head and took over my existence, which
Brain
is kind of
fart.
what they do.
Yeah, it's awkward, isn't it?
It is. Do you think that the Elsewhere dropping is such a big expansion? You know, it's a brand new map, it's a new area, massive storyline, dragons. You know, no one really thought the dragons were just almost scared Kyle there. Dragons are coming into the game. Do you think that Necromancer was a good accompany with that, or do you think it was a lot at one time? I'm going to start with Kyle on this one. Do you think it was like was it a good accompaniment? Do you think? Could it have been left? I don't know.
So I mean, I'm the dissenter on this one, and I have been since going out to ZeniMax. I don't think Elsewhere is that awesome. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it as a content release. Like the map to me
Appreciate
is
that
not the
honesty.
thing. Yeah, so I'm not really in on Elsewhere.
Okay.
So to me, the Necromancer is what I paid for with this expansion, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm that's what makes it feel worth it. Had I bought it without the Necro, for me, I mean, I'm an addict to ESO at this point, and I play it every day, so I would have bought it anyway. But you know, I could have made that argument like Necro not in there. I don't need it. You know, I don't really do anything else related to Elsewhere that's not the Necromancer. That being said, the Necromancer is, I mean, I've said this a million times, and I probably will say it's awesome. I mean, it feels very fleshed out. It's a very well-made class. I'm sure we'll talk about that stuff as we go down this list here, but it just feels like we got what, in my opinion, a polished product with it. So I still have a lot to do outside of Elsewhere the zone. But I mean, you know, it's been fun. And you asked like the last question of, do you constantly play it? And I do. It's replaced all my other mains. So yeah, I mean, it's a win for me. But it may have fit better. I haven't done the quest line for Elsewhere, so I don't know that. I know they're related, but maybe they would have been better suited for a different expansion theme. I don't know if that's true or not, but
that's true. It made it more of like I don't want to spoil
they
it.
feel wedged into me. Like it's like, hey, there's a thing about dragons, and here's this other thing that has nothing to do with dragons.
Yeah,
Let's mash them together.
it is. There are without spoiling it. There is a bit.
Yeah.
There is a bit, but like it's. I think there is. That's actually a very good point. You know, maybe the class, I mean, it wasn't the same with Morrowind, was it? And Warden, I guess. So they went that kind of same route, like the massive amount of linkages between the storyline and the class, which is maybe something that could have been looked at a little bit more. I mean, I think that would have been interesting. Having a storyline based around this entire class might have been quite cool, or even as another DLC. I don't know, but it did. You raised that thing for me, which is where, what if you're not interested, pardon me, in Khajiits, and you don't want to, you know, you can give a toss about flipping Elsewhere. You know, it's like, yep. And I'm not saying my personal opinion. I think Elsewhere is very good content and is a good thing, but it will only last a certain amount of time. And the Necromancer for me as well was exactly the same for you, Kyle. It was the main reason why I was excited for that that expansion, and the dragons as well, specifically. So it does, you know, in that regard for you, it was the thing that made you buy that, which is very, very good point. And that's important to remember. It's the same for a lot of MMOs, like Guild Wars 2, WoW, or whatever. You know, when they bring out a new class, people are like, I want to try that class. I think of crap if I go to Outland or whatever. I just want to be, you know, it's like, probably no one does anymore anyway. Or did, but I don't know. Xynode, how about you? I don't know if you remember the question I just asked, because I just waffled.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Hey,
Reword it.
the Necro, so the Necro coming in with Elsewhere, right? Do you feel like that was a good time for the Necro to kind of come in?
I feel like it's a bit of a Batman entrance. You know, he jumps through the ceiling and everybody sees him. He's surprised. Yeah, well, I think it's like that because
I don't remember that Batman episode.
It was in Batman Forever. He jumps through the ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That one. The reason I think it's like that is because they could have just given us a story. They could have just given us dragons, and I mean they did, which was good. The Overland itself. I mean, for me personally, I'm impressed with it because over the last 5 years or so, I'm still impressed with the fact that Zos can give us something that looks even remotely, even a little bit different to something we've already got. They always manage to bring us some content that does look in its own way unique. So with that respect, I'm still okay with that side of Elsewhere. But the main thing about the Necro and the dragons at the same time, they could have just had, here's a dragon, go kill it.
Yeah.
Instead, they said, well, we're going to make it a bit more important and we're going to introduce a class to get rid of these things because you lot aren't good enough yet. It was one of those. It felt like they had to bring in a new part of the story because everyone else is trying, and we're gonna have to break the law and our rules and bring in something that we're not allowed. And that twist there kind of felt like it was more impactful rather than just here's a necromancer. So I think the timing of the two together worked for that reason.
I think this is great. I'm loving what you guys are bringing to this conversation. Again, another point of view I didn't even think about. It's just like, I mean, there is that feeling, isn't it? Like, we're not good enough. I mean, even in the next couple of DLCs, it's like you see, Sai coming back and all this kind of stuff.
I mean, you had to break the law to get help because you needed it. It was. I'm not going to go too into the story and such, but we know that from the trailers anyway. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome. I think that was a good move for that reason anyway.
Okay.
So it's gonna be awkward for those of us who killed Sai though, because that's gonna be like, I'm sorry, help me.
I mean, they've got to have covered that. I mean, they've got to have covered that.
I've killed them all. They're gonna have to do something.
Yeah.
They have said
to me they're all dead.
Fix lined up for that to explain it all. Probably necromancers.
Unfortunately, yeah, probably true.
I mean, maybe. I mean, or maybe the Amulet of Kings had a little bit of power left, and it was just like just sitting there.
We've got Sigid, we've got time breaking rules. You never know.
That's true.
We could. They've basically got a license to just.
But they can do whatever they want. At the
moment. So, as soon as Sigid came in,
pretty close.
People like timeline. No, Sigid.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dragon break.
Or he's just got a doppelganger. He's got a twin called Sai, and he did exactly the same kind of stuff. And I don't know.
Sai from another universe.
Yeah.
Another Dragon break splinter. It's like,
oh god. Oh god. Okay.
It would be interesting to see where they go with it. See, they will have to consider that.
Yeah.
And they I'm sure they already have. But we can make up as many ideas as we like, but when they actually do release it, it's going to be the whole jaw drop thing anyway, because he always catches out something.
True. I'm hoping so. Okay, StarkeRealm again.
So the only thing that's a little odd to me on this was Elsewhere itself.
Right.
And I actually asked that one of Rich at one point when we were doing an interview with him, because that struck me as a little strange. Elsewhere's been asked for, but so have other places like Skyrim and just all over the map. There's a bunch of places that haven't been filled in, and people have asked for it, and it's like, okay, well, why Elsewhere? But Dragons and Necromancers have both been consistent requests basically since day one.
Yeah,
they've been perennial. People are like, hey, I want to fight dragons, or I want to play Necromancer. So having both of those come in at the same time, on the 5th anniversary of the game's release, makes a lot of sense. It's like, this is kind of a greatest hits of, hey guys, you wanted this, here it is. And in that sense, it doesn't surprise me, and it makes a lot of sense to put these together. And I don't think they conflict with each other, because the dragons are a bunch of PvE content. Some of it's repeatable, some of it's your trials, some of it's going to be into dungeons now, and some of it in the other part of it, the Necromancer, is just that's on a player side, so you're building your character, so these don't really conflict with one another. So I think it was a pretty good package, pretty good timing for all of this. The only thing that leaves me going, well, why this is Elsewhere, and that has been requested a lot, but it's just a little odd that that's the specific one that was picked. But I don't really feel much one way or the other on that. I think on the whole, it makes a lot of sense for it to be here, and it makes a lot of sense for it to be right now.
Okay. I think I agree with you as well. Yeah, another interesting thing to bring is that it is 5 years, and that's it. So what do you do in your 5 years? Bang, like you say, maximum impact. Guys like ESO has been. I think someone said in my chat yesterday, it's been voted like #1 like MMO or something
Yep.
for quite
Yeah,
a
I
few
think
years
They've
now.
got
2 years,
trophies
3
to
years
prove
now.
it.
Yeah.
Apparently,
They got trophies to prove it
someone
as
said
well.
4 in my chat. I was like, what? I'm not sure about 4 because I'm pretty sure the first year was pretty dodgy. But
Well,
First year
I don't
was
know.
iffy.
Yeah, and so was the second year. Like 2015 was a little bit odd. So it's like I could see it got best game of the year somewhere for that, but that's a little
Yeah.
surprising. But like the last 3, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
One Tamriel did the most part of that, to be fair. 'Cause although it did bring some problems, it changed
So much.
MMOs as a rule because you could just play with anyone with no gap above or below anyone's level or anything like that. That kind of stuff was really huge.
Well, we've started
that's
seeing
Flipped it
elements of
around
that.
completely.
We've started seeing elements of that pop up in other games too, where the level banding is getting reworked.
Yes.
So you have things like as you get above level band, it gets dragged up to you, or
Yep.
like with Division, when you hit level 30, suddenly the entire map levels to 30. Like that stuff is, we're starting to see that all over the place. It's really cool.
You
Yeah,
have
I
to
think
consider
they go
people's
on.
time, don't you? Because I mean, when MMOs first came out, okay, so if you're not at this level, you friends, you just won't get XP, you
Yeah.
won't get loot.
So true.
I mean, when
So
it first
true.
came out, that was as a genre, that's fine because it's if you've got time to play it, then you pay a subscription, you play it. If you haven't, then you don't. Now there's so many people that even never heard of MMO before trying to test them out. Now you've got to make sure that the people that don't play very often and the people that do play very often can interact with each other a lot more successfully, rather than hey, you're a high level, I'm never playing with you, or vice versa.
Yeah. Well, there's kind of a legitimate point when you look at MMOs. I'm talking like 20 years ago, where it's not really a game, or at least not a good game. It's
No.
a chat room with stuff attached to it that you play around with and tinker with while you're BSing with your friends.
Yeah.
It's an online playground.
Yeah. And as MMOs have progressed, like that's certainly improved a lot. But I remember even as recently as like Age of Conan, this was very clearly a chat room with baubles attached to it to keep your attention while you interact with other players. ESO is one of the few MMOs I could point to where it's like this is actually a game
Yeah.
first, and then the sort of chat room elements come after that as an attachment.
I have thoughts on that. I have
It's
thoughts
actually
on
very
the
true for
modern day.
console release
MMO.
of it as well, because console didn't have a chat function on it.
That's true.
Oh,
You
on
had
release?
no, not for the first few years, not until after One Tamriel, around that.
Okay.
You had
maybe
voice
just
comms,
before.
but you didn't
You
have.
had voice comms on console.
Ah.
But,
Is it local, by the
you
way?
had no chat. No chat. It was added as a feature, and so were buff timers as well. They were added later. So to start with, when the consoles first got theirs, you had your features on your platform, but you didn't have the in-game features. So you were physically just playing the game, and the only time you interact with people is through voice or through personal messages on the console itself. So when that chat function came in, that's when that was then a thing, which PC have had all the time anyway. So then that kind of, it's the flip reverse of what Stark is saying was the traditional, where you would just go in, it would be a chat room. It was completely the opposite. It was just get in game first, then chat. You spent more time playing than you did talking, and now it's mixed together so well. They did deliver it a lot better than previous games before them. So it was weird having no chat, but then again, it wasn't.
I think it adds. Sometimes it can add to your gameplay experience.
Yeah,
not having
it
chat.
can.
Yeah.
It can.
Let's be honest. Okay, God, I didn't even know that. That's great. Okay, well, so the point about One Tamriel is really good, because that makes elsewhere playable. Because you can't, especially WoW, like as an example, it's that level cap which they increase by 5 levels, 10 levels, whatever. And it's like you have to be there, don't you, to experience it? It's like you get hyped for this new content, and you may have been out for a couple of years, but if you're even out for 6 months to a year, you're out of almost everything. The loop, your gear's already crap, I guess. I haven't played WoW for a long time, like properly, so if that's an incorrect statement, I apologize. But if there's been an expansion or something before or in between, you're going to be out. Especially if there's been leveling up and stuff as well.
Battle for Azeroth added another 10 or 20, didn't it?
I think it was 10.
Yeah.
Something like that. But I know that is a constant challenge for people who do produce MMOs, especially now, about that constant, is it horizontal or is it vertical climb in terms of different things? And you found and again, I compared to Guild Wars 2, the kind of horizontal progression of progressing your character in other areas, it kind of works, but it doesn't give them people that idea of trying to climb and get towards something other than the new gear that might be coming out in the future, which still has the same stat bonuses and whatnot. I think ESO did a good job with like the champion points and that kind of stuff, but obviously it got to a point of ridiculousnly.
We're too high now. Way too high.
I mean, it's there's that. So then it's like, where do you take it from here? And that's another future conversation, which obviously I could have another entire podcast on, and probably we'll get you guys back on. Kyle, did I go to you for this question? I don't think I did, because I love that we keep veering off the subject because there's so much to talk about.
Like a good accompaniment, right?
Yeah. It's good. Yes, that's it.
That one.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you're good with that. You were the first one, I think. Okay.
Yes.
Right. I guess Stark kind of answered this question earlier, which is what I was going to ask. Is it okay that we are able to play a Necro in the Elder Scrolls Online?
Yes.
Since there's a little bit of awkwardness, with a little bit of awkwardness in terms of lore and being outlawed, unethical and immoral is where I keep seeing different things. Links to Molag Bal, vampirism, which is also considered a part of necromancy, apparently. Anyway, so we're kind of doing this kind of stuff. I don't know.
I think if you want to look at it on an ethical point of view, how many games can you decide to be good or bad?
MMOs or just games?
So why would you not be allowed to play something that dabbles in the dark arts with conditions, such as the guards will address you improperly if you make something raised from the dead?
Xynode, are you confirming that you just like to RP?
Yeah, well,
I mean, this is fine. The
other thing is, the arguments for that are normally from post perspective, isn't it? They go like, oh, this doesn't work in the law, you're not allowed to do this. No, we know we're not allowed. That's why the guards tell you off for bloody doing it.
Yeah.
It's fine, they've already covered that area. I mean, maybe they could make it a bit harsher, but don't, because I'm running out of money quick.
Just jump in the water.
Xynode's just in the middle of Vardenfell and the city, and he's just like, I just want to Hulk out,
looking at the guards go past, waving the middle finger because they can't swim. I'll wait out my bounty in the pool.
I just wonder as well. I'm interested in chat's reaction as we're doing this live on Twitch as well. And if there's anyone that is listening to this, like how you feel, and can tweet at me at Jebro Uni maybe and us and just say, I don't agree with the fact that we could be a Necro, because there might be people that have that opinion.
Yeah.
There's something about ESO. Well, actually, the Elder Scrolls in general, I really liked. This is going back through the single player games and still there in ESO. Is it doesn't really judge you on your ethical persuasion. Like, yes, there are legal consequences if you get caught breaking the law. Yes, there are legal consequences if you're killing people.
You mean from quests and such?
Yeah, like the game.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
It's not like there's a here's your good points or here's your evil points and you get a freaking halo if you get enough good points thing. Like that's not there.
You're not the dark or the light side like Star Wars.
They could incorporate something like that even on the basis of a skill.
Oh God, you got him thinking now. Jesus.
Right.
Why did you do that?
Because you are right, because you do have a choice of doing good or bad things sometimes in missions. It's like, do you want to make this person to go back to his wife and live out his days because you forgive him now, or do you just want to stab him in the neck because he just killed everybody else?
Well, we know what Xynode goes for, obviously.
When you go through the towns, they're like, oh yeah, it's you, you're the hero, brilliant, we love you.
Yeah,
you killed the guy, but we don't care. No one knows about that. They all know that you saved the day, but nobody knows that you just slaughtered a load of pigs. Do you know what I mean? So I think they should add something to incorporate that. I'm with Stark on that one. No one knows what you did except for the good stuff. There's bias.
Yeah. Well,
Necromancer, that's not allowed. Yeah, all right.
One of those that always cracked me up with this specifically was the Morag Tong and Morrowind, though, because when you were a member of the Morag Tong, you'd actually increase your fame rating, not your info rating. So like you were becoming more and more popular or influential as a person because it's a respected social role, but you're still a killer. You're still a murderer for hire. It's just you have this whole set of rules. That doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you more socially acceptable. I love that element about the franchise.
It is. I mean, again, that could be almost another podcast. Should they introduce this kind of thing? Because it is in Star Wars: The Old Republic. I mean, you can go to the dark side. You can go to. It's changed and altered a little bit. I ventured back there a couple of months ago.
And
Sorry?
Yeah, indeed.
I said my condolences.
It's actually, the story is solid. The story is actually very solid, and the way that you actually, I don't know if any of you have played it recently, but they've actually added some nice systems. Yes, it's a little bit, it's the pay to win in that game is a little bit extreme. You have to pay for everything, you know. It's a bit ridiculous, but on a story level, it's actually very good. It's Star Wars. I'm saying that films latest ones.
I'm one-sided with that. I'm one-sided with that. And
maybe that could be another podcast.
Not the side you expect. It is. You have to go on to something else. Old Republic, I didn't like.
That's fair enough.
Because it wasn't Star Wars Galaxies. That's the only reason.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
fair.
Galaxies was just ridiculously
I had
good.
such high expectations. I was like, do you know what? They've shut that down. Okay.
Oh no, I agree. I absolutely agree, man.
Yeah.
But you are right. The story was, well, you had the right people behind the story. It was good.
Yes, they were, and the voice acting and everything else. I think that's why I connect to ESO quite a lot.
Game.
Yeah, the voice acting was good. That's the one thing I will absolutely give it. The voice acting was really good in that.
But Kyle, before we get too emotional about Star Wars,
I've never played it, so I have nothing to add on that one.
There you go. Maybe that's something you could add. Then maybe you could venture towards it. Have a look. I don't know. Xynode did sell it very well there.
Yeah, and the whole Star Wars franchise is basically. I never did Galaxies. I hear good things, but the whole rest of them have never impressed me. So I'm gonna stay out of there, even though I love the universe. But
fair enough. But how do you feel about the kind of, is it okay that we kind of play a Necro in the first place? Like, obviously, you're playing as your main character now, so you're not going to say no. But like in terms of how it fits in with lore and everything else, considered unethical. And like Xynode says, maybe you just want to play as that kind of criminal character. I mean, you don't have to be a bad Necro. Are you a bad Necro? Are you a bad Necro if you're playing a Necro? Are you a bad person? I don't know.
Raise bodies to do the dishes.
I think I think above all of our levels, I think you kind of have to be a bad Necro, and I mean you could do whatever you want, but I think what their art is torturing the souls of the people they resurrect for all of eternity. So I mean, sure, you could be a good Necro. I mean, if you're a Necro, you're fine in my book. I don't care what you do. You get a stamp. I'm like, fine. Do the dishes, mow the lawn. I don't care what you have them do, but it's good. No, people were really upset when the Necromancer was announced it was going to break lore. And we're already breaking lore left, right, and center with werewolves, vampires, Dark Brotherhood. We're flaunting all that stuff. Maybe we can obviously easily rationalize it, be like, hey, look, the game can't detect that you're wearing a Dark Brotherhood shirt through town, like it's emblazoned on your chest plate and your shield and all that stuff. But in truth, like, we can't, people do, but we shouldn't be cherry picking like what we accept and we don't accept like that. Like necromancy, but yeah, I get it. The shield's fine. You can have the Dark Brotherhood everywhere. I know you just murdered all those people, but it's cool. So that's what I said to people. I'm like, well, because I would get feisty people in chat, especially right after the January announcement.
Really?
They'd come in and be like, and I would explain that away to them, and they didn't like that anyway. But the point is, it's cherry picking no matter how you do it. I mean, Vamp level 4, your face is like blue and veins popping out, your eyes are red, and you could just go up to the guards and say, "Hey, how you doing?" and they're fine with you. So is it lore friendly? I'd say so. I mean, they even went the extra mile to add in the justice system, which I think makes things better.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of it personally. How it was implemented, I think it needs more for me. But still, also the Necromancer isn't something I feel like people run down the street. We're hitting buttons on accident, right? And that's what gets us in trouble. But in the lore sense, most of the Necromancers are either held up in caves and actively practicing, or as we know from games like Oblivion, that there were necromancers in towns, but they just didn't practice their art openly, and instead looking at you, Oblivion, you would do it in the basement of their house. And some of them would get caught and killed and such like that, but still I think it's easy to run around town looking like a mage, but actually be a necromancer deep down at heart. So again, lore wise, I think it's friendly. I think I really like to see that justice system tuned up a lot. Like, I don't think it's a bad idea, but I don't love that it's a bounty with a system that we can't even kill the guards. I mean, the guards aren't interactable in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Nor can they kill us.
You're
like
completely
us, the
right.
people in this room.
Literally had that conversation in my stream last night. I actually said an alternative of what could be done.
Ooh, what's that?
And you get to that situation where you do pay the money, but it's actually a lot more. But in between, because I went from one town in like Vardenfell and I committed a crime and they knew that I had and I escaped. But then I went to Hrothgar and I was like, well, their carrier pigeons are bloody quick. You know, I mean, how the hell do they know? Sorry?
Tamriel Interpol is legit.
Interpol, yeah.
Well, what my idea was actually to have an event. So the live event was there is a messenger traveling with, word to different places that you are, this criminal, and it's this event, and it would just be like a guy running through a map. It could just be a really neutral area, even if it was like Cyrodiil or whatever. Probably not Cyrodiil actually. Yes, that would be a bad idea. And you'd have a certain amount of time to kill him before he could pass on the message to the next person who was, going to deliver this worldwide or whatever. It was just a fun little idea.
Kill grass.
Sorry?
You got to kill a grass or shoot the messenger.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, the guy who... I thought it'd be quite fun because it'd be like, how does that message get to all these places? There must be someone that's sending this message. It's not like we've got, Google Fiber. Jesus.
It's a problem a lot of games have done, both single player and MMO, the unreality or whatever you want to call it of guards knowing the crime you committed. And I think that ties back into the start of this question is like the Elder Scrolls is a world where you live a very solitary life for the most part. So a lot of people don't know what you would do in the world. Like a lot of these characters aren't that familiar with you. Even if you did a quest for them, you've interacted with them for all of one IRL day or something before you saved their farm and moved on, never to be seen again in the lore context. I'd love to see people in my chat have been mentioning the Fable system for Fable 1 with guards, where if you killed a guard, it would spawn a harder guard every time. And so I don't know, that's the perfect one. We'd have to morph that for MMO sort of play, but something at least interactable to go along with that bounty, so you don't just feel like you're sitting in that outlaw refuge waiting out your bounty. Needs something more interactive.
There was actually, funnily enough, in Arcade, you actually, and I don't know if you guys played that, but if you were an outlaw and they caught you, you would go to trial and there would be 10 players that would sentence you.
What?
Yeah, I've got a video of it. I've got a video of it on my YouTube. It was absolutely fantastic. And you could sentence them to jail and for 2 hours. They would have to sit in there. They could break out as well. It was an actual thing. It was very good as well, because imagine that you're sitting in a. This was a thing. This is real. I don't know if anyone played it in chat or if you're listening at home or whatever. But it was absolutely fantastic. It was just a completely different way of doing things. And it was just so fun just sitting there like, yeah, he's guilty and all this stuff. And everyone's just obviously trolling. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to give him the maximum time in jail and everything else. So I actually love those kind of systems. It's really good for like RP and stuff. But I mean, I guess that would be a system. Kyle's blown away. I need to forward you my video of this.
I'm also laughing because mine would probably all be people that were like those strong Necromancer haters, and they'd be like, "Screw this guy, kill him!"
Oh, you'd be like when Twitch
gets 3 IRL winks. He's a Necromancer. Like, so are you?
And you get this
on the jury.
Then you get a freaking game of werewolf going on, like which one's the secret necromancer on the jury?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the enjoyment of talking about it says a lot for it. I mean, it could be used for bad as well, I suppose, but still, another thing. I love this conversation. It's great. We need to get through to the actual Necromancer and talking about other things, because again, I didn't even write that much for this one. Okay, so and this is talking about the Necro specifically. So we know in MMORPGs, and I think we can all admit this to some degree, as like a selling point as well, and people are talking about the new thing, the new shiny or whatever. MMOs, I feel like, and I don't know if you guys do agree with me. I mean, I've had people in the industry kind of, I'm not saying Zos specifically, but like people have kind of said to me, the idea is that we kind of make this really powerful thing and we bring it into the game, and it's so appealing that everyone kind of just jumps on it. And I know that, you know, people don't necessarily want that to be the case. Do you feel like that was kind of the thing with Necro? Do you think it was kind of brought in to the environment and it was just kind of this really ridiculously strong thing? I mean, obviously we've seen patch notes and everything else. I don't know if this is a question or a statement. I'm trying to think.
It's a bit of both.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
If you look at the new, well, just on PC, for example, I mean, they're not accurate because we're not going to talk about numbers as far as damage output and all that's concerned, because it can be skewed depending on player skill. But if we look at it in terms of player usage, there are a massive amount of Necromancer in comparison with other classes. But that is also the fact that it's new and it is high in demand, or has been high. So it's not necessarily just a case of whether it's more powerful or not, because it is a play to learn type class. You can spam stuff and be ultra cool if you want, and it looks nice, or you can fully understand how all of the passives and skills work and be really strong. So you can't just outright be overpowered. You will have to know what you're doing.
Of course.
But yeah, definitely the influx of new players, especially with all the dragons and everything, Necromancer being high priority for players as far as a choice is concerned per class, and not in the game, and then all of a sudden it is, that impact did change how many people are playing what class and when. And at the moment, the Necromancer is way up there, especially if you look at ESO logs. It's massive. Like, I think there was a page I was looking at the other day. I can't remember the exact stats I was looking at. It might have been a damage output or something or other. And there was 1,540 Necromancer passes versus 44 Stam DK.
Really?
So that's
wow.
a big that's difference. Immense. Yeah, that's just one. Yeah. And there's countless on there. So that does show that there are more players obviously using it right now. Not necessarily due to its strength. Some of it may be due to its popularity. Strength shows obviously because there's more tests with it, but yeah, you will have to know what you're doing to make it strong. It doesn't just become strong out of the box.
Of course. Kyle and Stark, do you have feelings about this?
I think that's part of the. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm cutting off Kyle here, but I think that's part of it with the with it being overpowered initially. Is you do really have to know what you're doing with the Necromancer to get the most out of it. So if it's overtuned initially, that's actually destructive overall, because as players figure out how to make the class work, then you can bring it down safely.
Yeah.
Without as much risk of it just being hideously broken at launch. They made that mistake with the Warden. And they've never really gotten back from it, where it's not, especially Mag Warden is not easy to run. I straight up gave up on trying to get a Mag Warden to work. And it's doable, but it's not an easy one to run. And then after that, they tried to bring the class up to match where player skill was. But by that point, the reputation was already sealed of this doesn't work at all.
So with Necro, I guess what I hear you guys saying is the fact that it is powerful in the right hands if you have the willingness to invest and learn. But it's not straight out of the box, you know, I can 1 spam, 2 spam this kind of class and just do well. Okay. It
will look nice.
Yeah.
But it will be as effective as every other class if you don't know. Okay. It will just be, we're spamming some skills, we're having fun with it. But once you fully understand it, that's when things change dramatically.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a danger at the whole game here. And it's not just unique to ESO, but, you know, we get a lot of people that come in and go, I want to play this class. Is it the most powerful? Whatever that class is.
Which is the best.
And it's
bloody question.
My favorite passive-aggressive thing to say back, and I mean it both passive-aggressive and in the best way at the same time, which is weird, but I'm like, it's all dependent on your skill. If you play that
100%.
Class, great, awesome. If you suck at it, well, maybe roll up something else, because it's true. Like, you know, it depends on what you jive with, really. What do you synergize with the most? Absolutely. And so I do like the idea that this class was brought in strong. I think it's a bad idea to release any new content weak, and I guess they learned that prior to me even coming to ESO. But I'm speaking to the game industry at large. Never. Well, this is actually a marketing thing for whatever you're selling, toasters, etc.
You were in marketing, weren't you, or were you? I don't.
I have a background in PR,
that's
so
right.
it's like never release your product in a crap state, because, like I think Stark just said a minute ago, you'll never be able to recover from the damage you got the first time around.
No,
and this game knows that. Why?
Yeah.
Well, because everyone
Well,
still
'cause it
says,
released.
isn't this a dead game? Yeah.
Because it
I mean,
released when it did.
they are a fact
I mean,
that 5
Jesus.
years later, you can't bleach that stigma off of your
No,
content.
it
When you do
really is
bad,
true.
you do bad.
Hmm.
And so the Necromancer luckily won't have that
Yeah.
stain. And I mean, it could get it someday, but not really. I mean, they could nerf it down to the point that it's crap sometime, but then they could fix that up. But I don't think that they'll do that. I think now they started high and they'll stay high in a relative balance sense. They will get it where it should be.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I think it is. I actually wonder, and Xynode would be a good person to ask this to, especially. I think Stark, you and I may have already had this conversation. But I always wonder, the corpse mechanic is new for this guy, and some people
Well,
say,
it's kind
"Oh,
of.
Yeah, mostly.
true, yeah." I
Templars
mean,
and stuff.
Templar had repentance, so you did have to look out for bodies then, but not so much.
I feel like it wasn't
Also
like a
werewolf
focus,
munchies.
wasn't it? Yeah,
one
werewolf
skill,
munchies, I guess.
you don't have to aim at it. You don't, and I mean,
Yeah.
I'm overgeneralizing, but you don't even really have to position that much for the Templar one.
This is
Not
true.
not like the Necromancer one, right?
Yeah,
And so I'll get veteran players in my chat being like, well, we get new players, and the veterans will be like, I don't know, maybe Necro's not the best to start with. And I always wonder, some of us think that the corpse mechanic is harder because we're not used to it, generally speaking, aside from werewolves and
Okay.
Templars. But I wonder for a new player that's just getting into this game, if that's one of those things, like young kids learn languages easier than adults. I wonder how that happens.
I don't think it'll be an issue because this is the thing to consider. For people that have been playing for a long time and they're used to the same thing over and over, or they're used to sticking to something if they can, introducing something new is now adaptation and a learning curve. But if you're a new player, everything's new to you anyway. A light attack is just new as a body laying on the ground. You need to learn the basics of whatever it is you've just picked up. You don't have to completely change something that you're already used to, and your muscle memory's taking a crap in the corner. It's completely different. So I think for a new player, I don't think it's quite as confusing.
Xynode's comparisons to things is just amazing.
But it's just that you validated me. That's all I wanted to ever hear. Xynode. You just validated.
Exactly.
Because I think it is a relative. I mean, out of all the classes, I think it's a pretty damn good class for a new player to pick up. It's going to feel good. Like we said, you do need to learn it to really maximize it. But they've done a good job. When I was going out there, I was horrified, or had this image in my head. I'm like, what if I hate this class because of its corpse mechanics? Like, what if they're just so...
It was sketchy to start, though.
Yeah. And I'm still not in love with those siphons. I don't like the siphons as a healer because I have a hard time targeting them when that other guy has dropped from 90% health to 10.
We're going to be
siphon
talking
can be
about that
tricky.
as well, specifically.
Are you going on to that later?
We will be. We will be. So we'll move on to that.
give
I
it my
know.
floor.
I know. I'm a healer. I'm there on the Necro wise. I'm a healer as well. So I've got some words to say that I completely agree. But generally, I think we all feel like, the way it was brought in, it's not one of those things where it's like off the bat OP. And maybe people have, obviously, in things like PvP areas and whatnot, there is some strengths which are a little bit, questionable. And there are some, as an example, whether or not this is the thing. I think Outcast just completed Sunspire, getting the mount and everything else.
7 Necros.
7 Necros.
7 Necros.
So when it's in those hands, like those players that are on that high end
That's the
skillful,
difference. Yeah.
that's where that balancing needs to come in. But unfortunately, if that balance goes down to the player that's just getting into a brand new expansion and wants to play Necro, and it doesn't feel strong at all, that's where you need that balance. That balance has to be very, very, very well done in ridiculous. That that's going to be tough. And we've seen some notes obviously as well, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, so what role? And we are kind of getting towards the healer and everything else. What role are you currently focusing on, like Necro? I know Xynode, you said that obviously. You have 4 Necros, you're playing all the things because you do the builds. But what was your favorite one? Like, what kind of what role are you playing? Stam, Magicka, healer, DPS tank?
I think my favorite is obviously always going to be Stam DPS because I play everything, but I do prefer the stamina itself. Not just because it's a preference, but also because a lot of people are not quite sure how the Necro is going to work out. Because traditionally, you think a Necromancer wears a robe and has a stick. Well, the stamina side of it, that brought back a little bit of the whole Shadow Knight stuff from EverQuest for me. And I kind of like the idea of it. So I did stick with that as a role. I do have a tank as well. Tanks are absolutely insane, especially when you can turn into a Bone Colossus, or Goliath, which whether it's useful or not in your content is nuts to even try.
Yeah.
It's really, really fun. The Magic DPS I stayed away from for a little bit because I anticipated some changes, because obviously it was overperforming in recovery, but it was struggling in damage in comparison with some of the others. So I stepped off that a little bit for now. And the healers, Kyle's going to say this and you're going to say this as well, absolutely broken. Love it. That's insane. If you know what you're doing, it is absolutely nuts. But if you don't, then you're just spamming healing springs like everybody else.
I will not use the word broken.
Primarily, I'll say stamina, but across the board, except for the magic side of things at the moment, I do like pretty much all the roles. But I'm going to say, if I have to pick one, stamina.
Stamina DPS, and you're enjoying it, and it's fun to play,
definitely, yeah, really, really good.
Okay.
Especially if you're used to something like the DK, because although the skills are very different, you already know that you have to manage your own sustain rather than having passive recovery bonuses. You activate abilities to get your stuff back rather than just passive. Oh, something's running, or something dies. Or whatever. Yeah, it's really really nice.
Yeah, no, that is. I actually really like that. Like, I like the heavy attacks to get back something. Like, you have to think about that kind of thing rather than just.
There's
stats.
a lot of thinking involved.
Yeah, no, that's good. And it should be intricate on that level if you want to be good at something. I think that's just the way it kind of should almost be in life, almost to a degree. A little bit deep. I'm going to go to StarkeRealm next because I think, me and Kyle are probably going to bring some healing stuff into the mix here. But how about you, Si? Is it the same? Is it like,
Yeah, it's stam DPS because, again, if it's a class, I play at stam DPS probably on at least 2 characters. And then also I've got a Necro tank. So, it's a very similar answer, ironically.
Right. And is there any other reasons that you enjoy it specifically, or is it like what weapon set do you use, for example, if people are listening for the first time and they're like, yeah, Xynode's talking about this stamina Necro, but what's the stamina Necro? Like what would you use typically as a weapon set?
Well, I've got one. In both cases, I've got a bow on the back bar, and in one case, I've got dual wield front. In the other case, I've got 2-hander front because I do a lot of PvE DPS with a 2-hander.
Right.
And so, the only thing that's really weird about that for me is that one of the things I usually have to chase as stam DPS on a 2-hander is cleave, and that's kind of already there with the scythe, which is a really strange.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not used to having that. And I'm really not used to having that on my dual wield setups where it's like, oh, I can just basically have cleave. It's like, what? How'd that happen? It's weird to me.
I like that scythe. It looks cool as well.
It does look cool.
Yeah.
It heals stupid amounts.
Yeah, that's
for stam DPS, that's really important.
That's a PvP thing. It was a PvP thing, which I was worried about.
No, it's PvE too.
Even in PvE.
Oh yeah,
I was on live stream and I had no vigor, and I was like, oh my god, I can't heal. Oh wait, I've got this scythe. I just hit everything at once, and boom, health bar went up to full.
I'm guessing VMA is fun times. I meant as in being quite strong, I guess.
Very strong. It's really cool.
It's still health scaling, isn't it? It's like 40% or something. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, that's getting nerfed, isn't it?
There's some alterations, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, Kyle, healer.
Me,
or Stark.
healer?
Stark, did you have something to add? Sorry.
No, I covered that pretty much there.
Okay. Yes, healer. How do you feel about so in ESO? Just again, if you're listening to this and you've like, what's Elder Scrolls Online? What's going on? You can play pretty much any role. Any class on any role, really. I mean, I'm playing a Nightblade tank at the moment. I'm absolutely adoring it. But Kyle plays a Breton Necro tank healer.
Yes. You got all. Well,
I've
all
asked you these questions before for a reason.
Yeah.
I'll do my research.
I know you know it, it's fantastic. I mean, I honestly love it. It's hilarious that I get questions in chat, and I know that people are coming in sometimes for the first time, and maybe it's their first time on Twitch too. I'll give them that. But I'll be like on my Necro healer doing achievement like no death runs or something like that, and they're like, are Necros a viable class? Are they viable as healers? And I'm like, no. Actually,
no, I want to be the only one. Go away.
We just got our March of Sacrifices, our personality out of there, like achievement stuff, and it's Necro tank, Necro healer in the group. Like, we're rocking it and kicking so much butt. And I've got to say, and this definitely applies to the Stam Crow that you guys were just talking about, but this class is built so unique that it's so much fun. You mentioned the healing springs. whatever you want to call it. I like that it's getting
Alteration.
Alteration. I hate healing springs and have since the day I started. I think it's unoriginal and boring, and that's the only thing I have against it. Really, is it's just spam, and I don't like that. I want everyone to have a unique skill set on their bar, not just be using the same 5 things. Because if I wanted to do that, well, there's other MMOs I could play that do only that. But so the thing is, like, let's diversify, and the Necro healer's great at that. I mean, he's got a lot of wholly unique spells. Immediately I kicked Healing Springs off the bar for Unduring Undeath, which is our big AoE. We can lay on the ground with corpse positioning. And we got the Siphon, which I don't really like because I think it's hard to target. And we got our Spirit Mender. Those are just a couple that really stand out to say that it's a really, really fun healing class.
It feels like you're interacting in a different way, right? I mean, I started a healer off, and I did start off with trying to just use just Necro abilities, which didn't work with just Necro heals and like buffing and stuff, and obviously stuck some resto abilities in, and obviously you have to stick, the Undaunted and like whatever. But I think I do agree with you. It is unique. You have to think you have to kill to heal. It's like, you have to send something out, or something has to die for you to be the most efficient that you can be. I have actually gone back to my Templar, though.
Oh, traitor. I mean, but yeah,
a bit. There's something about Templar where I feel like, and I don't know if it's just that kind of. The funny thing is, my Templar looks more Necro-y than my Necro does, which is weird. So it's like
the real traitor.
Yeah, I know. I don't know anymore. But I do enjoy Necro healing, but there's something missing in it for me, and I'm not sure what it is. And I think I'm maybe one of the only people who feel like this, and I don't know. But I really enjoy it.
To kill more stuff.
Sorry.
You need. Tell your group to kill more stuff. You need the bodies.
To kill more stuff. Well, no, I'm good. Like I made a build as well on YouTube, and I produced my own corpses to a degree as well. So it's and I kind of like that way of doing it. I think it might have been something about the Siphon, which I felt was a bit plastic and a bit like it didn't feel very good. Like it just looked a bit dodgy as well for me. It was the effect that I didn't enjoy. Whereas I think some of the other Siphons kind of.
That's actually a huge thing, though. I mean, it's easy to sort of say, oh, the visuals don't matter that much. It's the game effect because you're focusing on gameplay. But if something doesn't look good, it usually won't feel good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm with you in that camp. It doesn't matter, necessarily if the game's graphics are all over are specifically amazing. ESO's is. And then when I pop the Siphon out, I'm just like, what is this thing? It's like this squiggly line inside a ray of sunshine. I'm probably not for Necro.
That is interesting.
But it was just something which triggered in my head, and I don't like it. And it's stupid because I'm a PvP. I don't really care as long as I can be efficient and everything. But it was just one tiny thing that bothered me. And the aiming, I don't mind the aiming specifically because I feel like if you're going to be more powerful, maybe there should be some kind of interactivity, like some kind of dodgy interactivity, which makes it a little bit more complicated, and you have to think about the fact that you need corpses. That's not too bad. But yeah, I think it was a little bit of that. I absolutely love the fact that I could shout in a trial with believe it or not, I brought a lot of people over from Guild Wars 2 and other MMOs I played in the past with elsewhere, and they have got no idea what the hell's going on. And there's not really any massive amount of heal abilities on Templar or on other classes where it's very visual. Like, stand in this, get heal. And with the AoE heal on Necro, I was like, guys, it might sound counterintuitive, but stand on the skull for life. And it was like, it's kind of really random, like a little bit random. But I love the... And then matching that, Kyle, to like the Siphon, I was just a bit like disconnected. I think there was something, and I don't know if that sounds stupid, but it's just a thing that I was just like, okay, kind of a bit off.
No, I don't think it sounds stupid. I think that's part of it too. This is a lot harder to test. or yeah, it's not just, you can't just balance this by numbers. What feels good and what doesn't? That's a harder thing, I imagine, to balance, because that's a lot of different feedback. Some people saying they love it, some people say they hate it.
Yeah.
I'm skipping a bit, but I just noticed this last night reading over the show notes, which I thought was really cool, and it's changed my opinion just a smidge on the restoring tether. Is it no longer will cost have a resource cost come the
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
PTS. I missed that one. I guess my brain immediately went to the, hey, it's decreasing the tick, the healing tick by 14%. Well, it was already bad for me. Let me get rid of it.
I
But that
mean,
actually now is
with the
pretty
amount,
cool, because that's a free heal.
pretty much. Is that how that reads? That's what I was going to ask you. Well, actually, we'll get to that, and I'll ask that
Consuming
question.
a body.
I mean,
that one's
yeah.
actually crazier than that too, because it scales to the larger resource pool, I think, which means that's now going to work on a stam.
Correct.
Oh god.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Stand
That's
here.
good.
Is it good?
It's very good.
It means that we can
stand.
stam heal on Necro. Is that something
We're
you're
getting there. Yeah.
I really want to. I'll be doing this
You
soon.
mix that with Circle of Protection, which is also being altered.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I was
very
leveling
nice.
mine up last night. So I'm ready for Circle of Protection.
Nice. Okay. We've pretty much gone through that one. Stamina or Magicka DPS? I think you guys said Stam on Necro.
Stam.
And
Yeah.
Magicka is more intricate and difficult to pull off, or is it just suck?
No, it's a case of it was a new class, so not everything is going to be exactly how they want us to start with. You know, obviously, Stark and Kyle already said, give everyone the ceiling first of all, and then just bring it down a bit as over time, rather than make it completely crap and nobody plays it.
Of course.
I think Magic, in terms of the damage output in comparison, regardless to what you use, because there's countless millions of ways to make a character.
Yeah.
I think it was in most cases underperforming in comparison, but it was over sustaining. So your sustain was not an issue, but you're hitting and hitting. You just couldn't crack the same numbers as perhaps other classes, even though you still had a 30% increase from the Malcolm Ultimate, which is what I call it. Don't laugh.
The Malcolm Ultimate.
Yeah, it's a danger. They all get names.
Is this
and
a
I
you
think
thing?
That was the case to start with, and they have addressed that in the patch notes as well. They've brought up a couple of the abilities to make them stronger, but they've then made the cost more. So they've figured out that was an issue. So they've gone up the damage, down the sustain, and now hopefully that should kind of meet in the middle. We've still got some more weeks on PTS to test stuff, and that'll probably still be altered the same, but that's at least they've addressed it. They've noticed that a problem. But yeah, to start with, I mean, stamina's solid anyway. But yeah, really, really good. I'm going to still be biased towards stamina, but I will test the magic here and keep going.
Yeah, so if there's anyone out there that feels like they want to be, trying these things and popping them out as well, I mean, Xynode's going to be doing that. Definitely someone to watch for that kind of stuff. Stock, is it the same for you?
For me, it's more of just preference. I don't enjoy weaving on mag nearly as much as I enjoyed on stam, so I tend to avoid it unless I've got a reason I really need to run mag.
There is a different feeling in that for sure.
The timing is different. Yeah.
It's more fluid. It feels like if you're in that with that physicalness, so like being connected to the the mob or whatever as well, and the weaving, it just feels a little bit more natural. Whereas like you're right. I mean, sometimes you don't really see the animation hardly at all on mag as well. It's a bit weird.
And it depends on the weapon, but yeah. So it's like that's been one going for me for a long time. It's just, and I do know the weave timing. I can actually weave on mag. I just find it less pleasant, or less enjoyable. So
yeah. Oh, definitely. Don't worry. Yeah, he just can't do it, guys. He doesn't know how to. Yeah, start. I don't think anyone thought that. That's
as evidenced by that horrific mag sort demonstration in PvP.
Oh god, Kyle. If you're playing DPS, yeah, no, I'm not either.
DPS.
I have actually not played DPS at all. Actually,
say stamina. Say stamina.
I mean, I actually do without Xynode saying that in my ear. I have to say stamina because I've heard the same thing. The mag seems to underperform. I mean, I run. My healer's got a mag build for when he goes and does some questing or something like that. But that's not a real comparison of any sort. I can see though, even in that, I mean, we can solo world bosses no problem as a mag, which is kind of fun. And the sustain is super duper high. Like that's kind of the fun part of it, is with so many of these abilities, with Scythe, with Bone Armor, with Colossus Form and stuff like that. You all have, you can, again, soloing world bosses becomes child's play, even if you're not great at it. And I don't think I'm great at it. So, but still, I hear it's not as good as the stam output. No personal experience though to back that up.
I think even you're right. When when I'm PVE leveled, I leveled with just Magicka and wasn't really focusing on gear sets to make me more powerful and everything. But I could feel like there was damage there. I liked playing. I actually had I still used Magicka because that's what I had like on my in terms of what I was leveling and it was fun and I could kill things and it was enjoyable. But I never really tried a proper mag DPS build. I've got a stamina Lobby level 3 which I'm leveling up my mount speed with, and when it gets to a point where I feel like I'm not running around the map like a potato, I'm gonna level it. I just have to make sure I log in on it every day and actually do the leveling of the actual mount. But yeah, there is that idea of like was it like a Death Knight kind of thing from WoW, or with a great sword and just running in there, or a Reaper, which is a Necro elite specialization in Guild Wars 2, where a great sword is the main weapon. That kind of connection to your target, be close up and being able to get that with that scythe animation and just hacking away and using skulls and stuff. It's just I flipping love some of the animations, and this is why I guess the whole siphon thing really gets me. When you send out that skull, just so awesome, just such a good projectile, and yeah, I'm okay. I mean, I've got to try it myself, so I haven't really got an opinion, unfortunately.
Do you like the other siphon? Do you like the DPS siphon, or do you just like none of the two siphons, visually speaking?
The DPS siphon I have personally not seen as much, and I haven't used it that much. But I think generally those I don't like. I like the siphon, for example, the Templar siphon. What's it called? When you get the Magicka and the health,
repentance, stamina, health.
That look when it happens is so bright, and I just feel godlike. It doesn't even, I can't even barely see the flipping thing half the time, but it's so empowering. I'm just like, that's cool. Like if the siphon was just a thing where it just, siphon this thing and it gave you this effect for an amount of time rather than the siphon just existed behind you. I just thought it would be like kind of nice in that kind of effect. So it had the same effect, but it was just black or darker or something. And it just gave you this thing. I don't know.
The DPS one, you should take a look at that because that is darker. It has some like chains of black magic that kind of go through it too. So yeah. I don't know, but I can see what you're saying too. Like just suck it all in and let your character project it. That'd be cool. It might just be a iffy animation.
Yeah, I think it's just an animation. It's a very personal thing. I realize that. Unfortunately. But I do enjoy the heal. I like that big heal and the resistance that you give. I think more for me as well is I like the fact that the debuffs and the buffs that you can give are very important. The utility that is very good. That may not exist specifically on other characters. I think Nightblade healing isn't. I haven't in depth gone into that, but I don't think it offers as nearly half as much as any other class really in terms of healing, does it? But I think Necro is a good one. Like you can play it as a tank well, you can play it as a DPS well, mag okay. When we say mag, by the way, and you're listening and you're thinking what we're talking about, we're talking about Magicka. Again, this podcast is for a variety of different players with different skill levels, and obviously coming into the game, Magicka is mana in other games. Well, comparison there. And I think there is viable roles, for each of the things it could be. Like every class should be. This is the magic of ESO. You can play a healer, a tank, or a DPS on everything at different. Obviously, they're going to be different, levels of awesome. But it's viable. It's absolutely viable. And that's what that kind of diversity and builds and stuff is just so important. And is a really fantastic feature of ESO. I'm going to go on before I start to gush about that even more.
Fine.
I just love it, man. It's so good. I mean, like the fact that I can be a Nightblade and just, and be a tank, I flipping love it. It's great. I've really fallen in love with tanking recently. It's a completely new change up for me. I barely tanked in games ever before.
It's a lot of fun in ESO.
Yeah, really, really good. Okay.
Actually, that's a thing on the Necro that bugs me a little bit.
Right.
Their version of chains is I don't like it. I'm back. I'm back. Go ahead.
I'm with you on that one. I do like the idea that it's free. You just have to get the attention of the enemies. But I did bring this up with us as well, and I do think that in some content that's going to be a negative.
Yeah, like I'm
have
still
to
using
take it off
Silverleaf.
and use a different resist buff, or get someone else to give it to you and use chains from Silverleaf, because we're going to say VMOL, for example. If those twins and you accidentally aggro the wrong ad and it comes in, you're stuffed. Same as the spider helmet as well. Same effect. So I think it can be. This works in two ways, because it could be a negative in some content, but it's also a positive because it forces you to try and think of another way to do things in certain situations.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's not that they've deliberately made a broken skill, it's that they've got a skill that sometimes might encourage you to use your brain and use something else and then switch back to it somewhere where it will work. But I'm definitely with you with the effectiveness of it in some places. It can be a bit of a bitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah. And the other side of that is I'm thrilled to have a conal CC again on a tank, because the only place you get that right now is the Sork. And it's like, yep, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually
like
really
it.
important for a tank. It's kind of, you don't really get that on many classes, do you? Like just
Well,
that
normally
single target
the
one.
design is you get the point blank AoE CC. Like you get talons or you get gripping shards.
Yeah.
So you'll chain stuff in and then you'll lock them in place. With the Sork and the Necro, you can lock them in place and then pull them in.
Okay. I like this. This is good. You guys have kind of covered a few of these things that I'm looking at right now. I don't really want to ask again.
We talk a lot.
Well, this is what podcasts are for, thankfully. I'm lucky. You're just covering it all anyway. In terms of, so we talked about the healing, Kyle, myself as well, and you kind of talked a little bit about tanking. I mean, Stark, I guess I come to you, and that feels good, right, with the Colossus as well. I mean, is it really just
Colossus is freaking nice. Yeah.
God mode.
It's nice.
Do you want to just describe it a little bit, just in case people don't know what that is?
Let's just more than double your health if you're DPS. It's still 30,000 health, isn't it? It's like,
yeah, but it stacks off of your it multiplies and stacks and all that kind of stuff with all your other stuff. If you're 20k health on a DPS and you pop that ultimate, you'll end up with over 60.
Yeah. And I think the highest I've seen was 90 on my tank, but it's like it gets ridiculous.
You can go to, I think the most I've hit so far is 131, but that was in PvP. And that wasn't as an emperor.
Oh god, now I understand.
Wow.
Now I understand. Now everything comes in.
You can run into guards. I mean, obviously players as well. But when that healing aura is around you, you can run into as many guards as you want and just put your cooldown and just walk out the room. Come back. It's run out now. You've got no healing going on, and because you've got so much high health in the first place, you're still not dead. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
It's really, really strong. It does make you feel like you're borderline invincible. In fact, you are.
Yeah.
It's got its own built-in fear, because as soon as you see it, you're like, nah, just run.
It's true, actually.
What's really hilarious to me about that in PvP is players do not stop and think and go, oh yeah, that's going to run out in about 30 seconds. So I just avoid that guy for a few seconds. No, they try to run in, they die, and then they're like, what is this? And it's like, just keep some distance, please.
That's the PvP mentality, though.
It is.
80% of players will run in 1v4 because they think they're a hero. And they're like, yeah, I'm sure I can do really well. Oh, God. They've not even finished their fort. The tank, enjoyable. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think the Colossus, when they announced it and they showed us the graphic on Twitch, because they went to Twitch. Like, Zos went to Twitch. They were on the live show, you know. Obviously, there was some kind of deal done there. And they got to really get a large amount of exposure for this, and they showed the right images, right? I mean, they showed this Colossus was one of the main things they showed off, and it was like everyone was just like jaw dropped. You know, if you're an Argonian, you're gonna see the fact that you're, you know, this Argonian skeleton figure that rises up and essentially destroys you, and like you're just this big Colossus. I mean, the name. I don't need to really explain it. And it's very awesome to look at, the effects and everything, the general look. I mean, the graphics and everything else, and this, you know, everything they put into that class, it does look, right, barring that siphon that I don't like, everything else is fantastic. Even the res looks good, the elite res, because no one's got that really. I mean, he brought a new thing, especially for trials. And if you're training as a trial guild, like taking a Necro is really, really good. And like us,
definitely.
it's fantastic. It saves
Potential
you a lot.
wipes can be ignored. With that.
Yeah. I mean, again, potential wipes can be a nod. Is that good? I don't know. I mean,
I think it is because there's so many people that get to a certain stage, and they basically can get to the point where they give up. They're like, well, we can't get past this phase. Someone's always dead. Is someone important? Blah blah blah. That's what Kagranax, for example, the set is made for, to make things happen faster. That's what the Templar Res passive is for, to make it happen faster. It's for those emergency situations. And now you've got even more of an emergency situation where you can get 3 people. If you've got 2 Necros doing it, you can get 6 people. You can recover where you can't normally succeed. And for training groups or for new groups, I think that is a bit of a blessing in disguise, because it can help you push further into content to experience the stuff afterwards, rather than just constantly getting stuck. The more confidence you get completing stuff with that in mind, the better you'll get at it and the less you'll need it. But it gives you a chance to start with. So I think the more elite players, if you like, probably won't need it. But for newer groups or people that are training, I think it's a really, really good helping tool to kind of push that little bit further rather than just give up and leave.
Yeah, this is a fantastic addition. Like, which is kind of funny as well as a healer. Like
PvP, however, it's nuts.
It's yeah, that is an interesting one. I guess that there is that question as well. Like, how does it kind of transfer? I'm aware of time actually, so I may not ask that question. There may be a PvP conversation because we've only got about 15-20 minutes left, and we could probably go down the rabbit hole right there. So I'm going to be careful. There is the patch notes at the moment for the next DLC, which is coming out. Do you want to just does anyone want to have a quick guess on a date? Unless you know, and obviously don't share that. I mean, I don't think we've been told specifically, but I know stream team members and everything else, but I don't know. Is there a guess?
Announced.
It's not announced at all.
Announced.
That's not announced. It should be about 5 weeks after the PTS. I didn't keep track of the exact date.
Usually about 4 weeks. The chapter's normally a little bit longer, but the quarterly updates, the smaller ones, the dungeons and the other side stories and stuff, they're normally about 4 or 5 weeks on at most.
So that gives you a rough release window, but we don't have the exact date yet.
Okay.
Soon.
Yeah. Probably about 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
So mid-August.
So we're on today is the 14th of July, so you're looking, like you say, mid-August. Okie dokie. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish off, and obviously this is only really relevant for as long as this is around, because obviously patch notes can change for feedback. Patch notes are only really relevant up to a certain point in time. These podcasts are kind of more of an opinion piece rather than anything else. So I just did want to quickly go over this, and it's not going over every note, because obviously, again, this could be a thing in itself, and it's not a massive amount of stuff, in all honesty. But I just wanted to see if there's anything here that you guys specifically were either worried about, agreed with, or needs a little bit more of a look at, maybe, or if there's anything else that should be put in there that should be changed, or things that you're worried about. So I'm going to go to Stark first, because this is on the forums, and I thought this would probably be a good place for you to go for. And maybe we can put a clip of this video on the forums there. I'm not sure how much of a good idea that is. How did you feel generally about these notes, and is there anything there you could pick out that you feel is a good change, or is a bit questionable?
It was actually a little weird here with the Necromancer, because the Necromancer note separate from the other class notes. Zaya and I both stumbled across this independently and forgot about it, and then rediscovered it when we were trying to find the notes again for today. But so that's a little strange, because these changes here are also part of a larger overhaul where they're trying to standardize a lot of systems in combat. They're standardizing a lot of costs, they're adjusting a lot of damage so that abilities work more consistently game wide.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff is definitely it's here because there were issues with the Necromancer, but some of it they're trying to make sure all of the classes play to a certain similarity. Like if you've got something like chucking a skull at somebody, that's going to be somewhat similar to the Nightblade's Strife ability. That's going to be somewhat similar to Vampire's Woe, so that you can look at the ability and go, okay, it's this kind of ability. It's going to be roughly like this, as opposed to some of the weird idiosyncrasies the game has had that they're working to sort of clean out, so it's easier for new players to get in and understand what they're doing. Most of what I've seen here looks like it's mostly just that.
Okay. Well, kind of standardizing it across the board rather than having it so intricate that, there isn't when you... Because it is nice for you to go, if you do this one thing, it's nice to have the similarities there. You can be like, and you can link to that. Like you say, I know this ability. It's kind of similar to Nightblade, but I've still got to play it in a different way. Maybe it's slightly, but so you can connect to it, I guess.
Yeah. The one that did stick out beyond that is Restoring Tether, where it's like, this is now going to pick your highest defensive stat. And that always catches my attention because stam healing is something I keep track of a lot.
Yeah.
It's a really cool, really niche thing. And I always love when I see more stuff that supports that gameplay.
Yeah, I do want to play a stam healer pretty bad.
Right now, you can do that with a Warden. It's a lot of fun.
Or Bow, right? Is it?
You can do it with any class technically, but the Warden's the easiest to do it with because they do have a stam heal in there.
Yeah, also a really good heal alt that's cheap, so you can run that in barrier. Trees barrier, you get your mushrooms, and then it's the easiest one to run it with.
Yeah.
Xynode, anything in there specific that you
or the Necromancer as a whole, or
both actually, like the patch. So no, it's Necro. Yeah, we'll focus on Necro.
I'm pretty much on the same page as Stark with that one. I do like what they've done with the Necromancer so far on the patch, and with the testing that we've done so far, it's actually pretty good. Blast bonus was addressed, obviously, because that was an issue. Sometimes it was running around a room, not sure whether it should hit someone or just make a biscuit or a couple of stamps.
Make a biscuit.
Why not? And then Boneyard was obviously addressed as well. It was overperforming to some extent, so they messed with that a little bit, so that was okay. The mag stuff that I said earlier, like the damage was down and the resource gain was up. Well, they jigged that and they brought that back in line. So that's actually, for the most part, what I really looked at on that, and I'm really happy that they've done it. In the meantime, the rest of the class is being rejigged at the same time. Of course, they were going to do the whole audit thing over top of the entire game itself and all the classes, but this is the thing we were talking about earlier, where you bring in something down a bit. Now that's one way to look at it, but also in the same time, you mustn't neglect the rest of the classes. So if something does feel too high, even though you brought it down, you do have to start messing with everything else and just level it out. And it does feel like, as far as balance is concerned, for every sort of meaning of the word itself, this is what they've tried to enforce in this particular update. And so far, for the most part, that's something that they have done. And also, when Stark was talking about the stam healer, the game is built upon the foundation of choice. So you can choose any class you want, play any role you want. You can play stamina, or magicka, tank, or healer on anything. But there is a way to stam heal, but just not as much or used as much as a magic heal. Now, again, that's another choice that you should be able to utilize. So I do see them kind of pushing for that now to make that just as effective as the magicka side of things. So magicka DPS, stam DPS, magic heal, stam heal. You can be a stam tank, you can be a mag tank, you can be a health tank. You've got more.
What if there's too much stamina things?
Yeah, they feel like they're trying to bring it in that way. So I do like what they've done with that and some of the changes to the skills as well, especially stuff like Circle of Protection, which was never a heal before. And now it kind of can be utilized. So classes that don't have a stam heal, they can obviously take advantage of Vigor and the other more for that, which covers more people. But then the Circle of Protection at the same time, and then Necro's got extra stuff in there. It feels like they're trying to plug the gaps for everything, so you've got a lot more choice, but everything is equally as viable as the other, without anything being too strong in comparison with anything else. Yeah, they've still got to rejig a couple of things, but it's quite good. And on the same respect, as far as choices are concerned, they did the same with Soul Trap as well. That might need altering, but then again might not. They've made it before, so it only bases off of magicka. Now it bases off of your max stats. So regardless of class, regardless of style, that again is another balanced choice. And collectively across the board, not just the Necromancer, but I think they've attacked or approached a few skills correctly, but might just need to fiddle with them a little bit. I think we're going to see a lot more choices coming up.
I hope so. I mean, that's inevitably, that would be the dream, right? I think you've already got so many choices to try and expand on that. And and increase that is a big goal for them to always have. But I already think that they've got so many more choices than so many other games. It's impressive to see them actually try and go for that next.
They're keeping it fresh
level
as well, because they're changing the functionality. Something that you're very familiar with, bullshit, and you're never going to use it, has now completely been changed. So now you're like,
meta switching is important.
Maybe I'll change it.
Yeah.
So
meta switching is important, very important. Like in any game, I feel like, you know, it's like a PvP game specific. You know, League of Legends, you change a hero that's just absolutely trash, and then all of a sudden there's a couple of abilities which bring it in line to like the meta, and it completely changes things up. It doesn't just change up gameplay; it changes up everything. Like there's new builds to be created. There's new, you know, content out there for people to create. It brings a new, you know, lease of life on something. New, you know, players who may not have played before or did play before in the past. They were like, I kind of wanted to play a stamina healing Nightblade. This is an example. And now I've got this one ability which might bring it in line, and I can pop other things off. And it just brings in that extra excitement and hype for something, and it is important. I know there's people have a fear of, like, you know, I liked playing my pet Sork Cypher. Sorry, this is a little bit of a poke at one of my viewers. And you know, maybe that might not be as strong. I don't know. I haven't looked at it specifically. But you know, maybe this thing might not be as strong in the future. He's the kind of player who can adapt to anything. He's very good. Shh, don't tell him I said that. Please don't. I know it's recorded. He's probably not here. But at the same time, you know, it's about adapting, and that's the part of a good player. You know,
that's why the game changes every 3 months. MMOs anyway are designed to change, keep up, and
you'd think so, right?
It's not like
so many don't do it.
Thing that says that has changed. But when it comes to stuff like what they're doing now, they are enforcing the whole diverse side of the game, where you can do multiple different things, and in their true form, basically, most MMOs tend to be look for the best, get the best, you're done. Power level as fast as you can, and you'll be better. This game doesn't work like that. You need to understand what you're doing first, because otherwise, if you're max level and don't understand anything, you suck.
Yeah,
and at the same time, if anything is overused, and I know people like to use the term meta quite a lot, which I personally don't, especially in this particular game, because I know there are so many countless choices that no human being has ever bloody tested. How can we ever decide that there's ever one best? And the more we push towards one way or no way, the more ZOS changes stuff, because they want you to have choices. So every time something is overused, they'll bring it back, or they'll push something up, which is what they're doing with the old sets as well, because once they become garbage over time, they're like, well, they're not being used enough by our stats, so we'll make them more useful by altering their full purpose, and now that gets people to try them out again. Yeah. So it's constant change and constant testing and constant, well, in a nutshell, trying out new things and seeing what works, rather than sticking to the one way that you've found. But you can still stick to the one way that you found if it works for you. Yeah, the whole thing is built on the foundation of choice. I think they're doing a good job to keep up with that.
It is definitely a very unique game in the fact that you really can. I think as long as you have like some of these key abilities, like things like, you know, as long as you're a healer that's able to give regen, is able to give resources back, and these kind of basic things, and you know, you can essentially heal how the hell you want, as long as it's, you know, I mean, you've got some of these key abilities, as long as it works. Exactly. Unless you're going for something like a speed clear, like some crazy record thing, you know, when there's like there's that ability that there's that build that is just literally the best. Like, you don't have to do that to clear a vet trial.
There was a stam healer that was very, very successful. Stark might remember the name, because off the top of my head it's gone fried somewhere. But there was a stam healer that was doing vet trials, and it was really effective, like ridiculously strong, and even more in the right hands than some of the magical ones out there. It was disgusting.
Was it what you're talking about? But I can't remember their name. Yeah,
it was nuts. And that was a while back as well. I mean, not even including the possible changes to PTS right now. That was a thing before.
That was before Clockwork City, I think.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it? It wasn't. Was it Warden?
It was a Warden.
Yeah. Warden.
It was a one.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. I need to look at this. I'm interested now. I like playing. I like playing random things that aren't the norm, which is what my stream kind of like. You know. I mean, I know I'm playing the Templar.
That's how you find stuff out, though. You got to try it.
Yeah, I love it. Like I had a build, series in Guild Wars 2, which is called To the Contrary. It was a little guy in a bowler hat, and it was just like, I'm not going to do this exactly how you think I'm going to do it. And I had like a Necro healer, for example, was one of my first builds when it really shouldn't have been. And it was like, no one would ever play it because the meta was so strong. It was like, 5 classes, PvP, 5v5. This is what you ran, or you would suck, and that would be it. And I love that variety in ESO because it's got a lot to do with skill level as well. It's not about spamming the same stuff because you can't.
Skills on and that's it.
Yeah, it's not. You have to resource management, and that's why I like ESO because even though the cooldowns don't really exist and whatnot, it's just like if I've got no magicka and I've got full HP. And that guy's got 20% HP, but he's got resources. He's probably gonna win. Like, because you can just burst heal himself and just smash me down instantly. And I think that's what it should be about, and that's what I really enjoy about this game.
Well, it takes the concept of timers from most MMOs I've ever played anyway, and changes it into an actual resource game where you're having to judge what you're doing in a larger context. So it doesn't matter if, I've got a basic attack on cooldown. It matters, did I burn through all my resources using my attacks, and now I don't have enough to finish the job.
Yeah.
So true.
Good point.
Kyle, is there anything in there that you talked about the siphon?
Like I said, I think the skeleton, the blast bones, was feeling very weird. So I'm hoping that fixes in. I haven't really played with it much. I was initially scared with the changes they made to Spirit Mender. I know they did this pretty uniformly across the board, which is what the guys were saying at the start of this, that they increased the cost of it. And I thought, oh no, that's going to be weird. I feel like I'm not going to have any magicka left. But no, in fact, it feels super, super solid with these increased prices.
Have you played it? You've played it on the PTS? Or?
Yes. And speaking of that idea of bucking the meta, I mean, it was Xynode, my friend Freddie and DeWinter from my stream. We went into the PTS, I think the first night it came out, with random changes to our builds. And so, none of us really knew what we were doing exactly that night.
Awesome.
We had never put them on our bar. And so we just went through and we wrecked Vet Fang Lair and went on to start wrecking like the new dungeon we had never been in before. And that's, the meta, as we call it, doesn't mean jack compared to like just practice and skill set and understanding what you're doing in the game. But it felt really solid. The changes, I think this is outside of it, but it's related, that the change to balls,
it's brilliant.
Necrotic Orb, I love it.
Yeah.
People were so worried about it. And Sai's like, I'm getting all of them. He's like, this is great.
Yeah,
Okay. So for context, I need to know if someone wants to explain the exact change and what you think the impact of that would be.
So, so what we're talking about is the necrotic. It's necrotic mystic orb. What's it called?
Necrotic
Orb is the one you're using, but you got necrotic orb and
and so now it's only one ball or bubble, as I know calls it.
Yeah, it self cancels now if you recast it. The difference is, and this might be on the PTS now. I think it might have been updated on this week, but the difference is now it doesn't dissipate when somebody claims the synergy from it. So it'll just float through, and everybody can grab synergies off of the orb as it's floating through the party, instead of it being you send out 3 or 4 orbs in quick succession, and then players just scramble for them, or more often just ignore them and then whine that they don't have resources.
The one was really good because you could plainly see it, you could take it, and the healer is very, very aware there's one bubble in the air, and once they can fire another one. Instead of spamming loads and loads of resources, bubble, and nobody fucking takes one. It was such an annoyance to see them all flooding across the screen and nobody taking them.
You have to remember as a healer as well.
One.
Like, when did I pop that out?
If it's gone, it's gone. Get another one out. It was much better for resource sustain, and they weren't a problem to take because they slowed the speed down. It was really good. Throughout content, Kyle was the healer, and I didn't struggle.
And the reason I bring it up, even though it's not a Necromancer thing, is it actually frees us up to use a lot of these abilities that are listed here. Because what I hate as a healer, again, back to the Healing Spring spam, is I hate doing something repetitive if it feels like no one's benefiting from it.
Yeah, correct.
And as a healer, when you're throwing out 3 of those balls and they cost a lot of resources, and then only one person takes it, so it's a loss, like 2 out of every 3 are wasted, that feels bad, and you can't get to your other things in your rotation or help helping out with a little bit of DPS or something like that.
Yeah.
So it felt really good. Like I'm just like, catch this ball if you want it, and Zai's always running over to it, snagging it, and it fit the rotation well because yeah, I mean you get to use all these great things. So again, Spirit Bender, awesome. Restoring Tether, probably won't use it, but maybe now that it's free, I guess, kind of, sorta.
Or at least trying it, yeah.
Render Flesh worries me because they didn't fix a bug that I clipped, which is that sometimes it doesn't heal at all, even though it shows the animation. I've caught it not healing full stop, and that's a little bit scary because that's kind of your breath of life as a Necromancer.
That's right.
Plus, I use the resistance one, so I sometimes throw it out there just for like, hey, I've got resources. Someone get a resist out of this.
Yeah,
that's my main reason. Big one doesn't work.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, that's
ZeniMax,
right.
Please.
I mean that AoE floor. What's it called when it uses a corpse?
Enduring Undeath.
That does a lot of healing. I almost feel like that's the main heal for me. I'm just like, chuck that on the tank.
I agree.
Like,
I use it a lot more than the other.
Yeah. And it looks cool as well.
Yeah, it looks great. I always say if I were to get a tattoo, that would be it. The big Necro. That would be so worth it.
That's good.
It's right on my face. Oh wait, no, not there. Okay.
Oh God.
Come on. But yeah, no, that's kind of my summary of these. I think it's gonna be good to continue play testing it because we talked about this that it seems scary on paper because there's too many notes that I don't think any one person's brain fully gets this in one or two read-throughs. Like it just doesn't compute until you see it, because
it's one of the reasons why I just put the Necro one in. I just copy pasted it because I was like, these notes are very, very intimidating every single time I read them, and it's the same on any MMORPG. I think the way that people construct their patch notes, one of the best people I think I've done it is it's either Dota or League of Legends, where it's very graphic orientated. It's got the ability. It's got the ability icon. It's got a very simple line of text, very well spaced out, and it's more of a thing as a news article rather than a forum post. So it enables that kind of construction, and it's very solid. Once those notes are. And this is no slight on Gina or anyone that's producing them, because it's just the way people do it for years, But I feel there's a way that MMORPGs specifically could deliver patch notes in a way which can entice newer players and other people to come back and be like, guys, in a news thing, these major changes, like, boom, even if it's just a small little clip of video of someone doing the ability, this change has come in. You no longer need to use all your balls, just one.
Save the other for later.
Yeah, save the other for later.
Have you seen that visual? Oh God, he's off again.
Sorry, Jesus.
Can't help him, can you?
Oh, the double entendre.
Usually, obviously, but they do have the spoilers in there where you can click down and they say their full intent of what the change was for, their research behind it, why they did everything. But also on that point where you've said visuals in the patch notes, I don't know if they'll be able to do it for abilities, but I do agree that if they did that for furniture and stuff like that, that would actually help. Because while I'm doing the patch notes, I mean, there are people that do nothing but furniture and crafting and fashion and all that kind of stuff. And on my own PTS live streams, I skip all that stuff. And I don't skip it because I'm not interested. I skip it because I can't see it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, little images of each individual one, if they were coming and stuff like that, would actually be quite nice. But then I also think that they want us to go in and see it. So that's true.
I just think that
that might help.
Patch notes are such a great way to advertise your game. Changes.
Let you know that you're staying on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it should be a big thing, like patch notes. Like, I mean, again, Dota League, they have these big articles and people cover it. This big thing, like, this is now changed to this, and I think there's so many different games miss out on a massive opportunity of PR marketing as well. To be fair, I mean, Kyle could probably say something a little bit more beneficial than I could on that, but it's a good excuse to sell your game. All this stuff is changing up. I guess if it's nerfs and stuff, you can pick them, the bits and pieces which are popular. I mean, you can do that. But yeah, I feel like there's something else can be done. I'm very conscious on time. I know that people have to kind of do bits and bobs, and obviously Xynode's over on the other side of the world, and other people we have to do things. This is life. 2
Stuff to
hours.
do.
2 hours is a good time. And I want to try and keep it down to that. Kyle's been here before, and it's like 2 hours, 45 minutes. He's probably like, Jesus, am I going to die here?
Someday, honestly, the more you have me back here, the higher the likelihood. We'll just be my resting place forever.
That's dark.
It's playing a Necromancer.
Jebro's a great guy. Filled with necromancers here.
I appreciate that statement. Okay, but otherwise, I'm going to go for that. Is going to be the end of the podcast. And it's been a fantastic one. Really, really excited to talk to you guys today. It's been enlightening again for me to hear again more people's awesome views on different things that I don't specifically think about. And I'm sure you guys got some new views on different things as well. I'm going to go around you and just say, if you could just tell us where we can find you and all the things. Kyle, where are you? Where can we see you? Sell yourself in some words.
Twitch.tv/KyleDempsterStudios is my primary content. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Those streams start up. Then the website, KyleDempsterStudios.com. Go to KyleDempsterStudios.com/podcast because this is a pimping out of one that Stark, Xynode, and I were talking on Wednesday. We released a podcast episode today. So if you guys want, you can actually grab more of the three of us talking, and then we got to get Jebro on there. So Jebro chat, keep harassing him. We'll get him on to discuss things. And Xynode's gonna be back next week to continue talking patch notes. So hopefully you guys are not sick of patch notes because they're important. And also twitter.com/KyleDempsterSTU. And I think that'll do it for my shout outs here.
Okay. Good stuff. Go and watch him. Go and check him out on all the things. All these guys are great guests, and this is why we get them on. So hopefully you guys can check them out. Whether or not you're on Spotify and everything else, all their information will be in the comments, in the description below as well. So make sure you do that. Xynode, where can we find you? I know there's a lot of places.
You can find me on Twitch, obviously, /Xynode, which is 10 p.m. UK time every day, unless I say otherwise on Twitter, which, by the way, is /Xynode as well. Patreon.com/Xynode there. YouTube is /Xynode Gaming. And the website is www.xynodegaming.com. I think that's it. There's a Facebook page as well, but that's Xynode Gaming. That's it. There'll be some more.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you can probably if you have any worries. I did it just earlier before, and I was like, if you Google Xynode, you will literally Xynode ESO, all his stuff comes up.
Yep.
Which is good.
All there.
Okay. Awesome. And StarkeRealm. So is you don't Twitch, right?
I don't.
But where can we find you? Where's the best place if we want to take in some of your thoughts and analytic criticisms? And,
well, there's a pretty decent chance if there's I probably won't show up there, but there's certainly plenty of them that I do show up on. So that's a StarkeRealm. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Michael J. Schwartz, and that'll also have a link to How to Fight Right, which is where I do writing advice on a fairly regular basis. It should be 3 times a week, but we've been missing the schedule a little bit. Events outside our control lately. So that's either me or my significant other. And I think I can type that in chat. That's How to Fight Right, WRITE, so as in writing, not as in correcting.
Yes, I will link that as well right now. And that will go inside the description. Is that right? How to Fight Right with the
that's the one.
Right. That's the one. Yes, it's very good. You should definitely go and check it out. I've had a little bit of a read myself, I will admit. Yes, to do some research because is it like with Kyle and Xynode, I can go and watch their stuff. With you, I was like, okay, how do I do this? And then we just talked for a bit as well, so that was very useful. And obviously hanging out in streams in the community. So you see StarkeRealm, it's on the forums, he's in Twitch, he's in the back, he's just watching, making sure that everything is going okay. The Guardian is the name I'm going to use for you now. It's better than Mother Teresa, isn't it? Yeah.
Sounds better than that weird guy, so that works.
And him.
I never said that. Okay, but otherwise I'm going to sell myself very, very quickly as well. This show is produced every 2 weeks on twitch.tv/JebroUnity. You can find me also on YouTube, JebroUnity, as well as Twitter at JebroUnity as well. So if you want to come and check out those things, obviously You are very welcome to. I would really encourage you to follow every single one of these people right now, because they produce very excellent content. No matter whether or not it's on Twitch, YouTube, even Twitter Insights, talking about different news that's going on outside of Elder Scrolls Online, which is very important to us in terms of our own personal lives as well. Is very good, and they're good people as well, specifically, which is the most important thing. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching this episode of The New Companions, talking about the Necro on the 14th of July 2019. We'll be back actually next week, I do believe, because of my schedule. So prepare for another episode to be coming up quite shortly. If you enjoyed this, you can also support on Anchor as well. But otherwise, that is pretty much going to be it. And we will wave you goodbye. So to see the wave, you have to go onto YouTube and look at the VOD. StarkeRealm's gonna wave in. You just have to believe him.
I'll wave in chat. It works.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.